What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Understable Podcast. We are back with another episode. The off season has really been pretty eventful, Mark. Wouldn't you say? We got some things to talk about.
Yeah, it's been quite eventful. A lot of moves, a lot of surprising things. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we will. But first, before we start, introductions. Of course, I'm Brandon Schmucker, one of your co-hosts. Across from me, Mark, my other co-host. Mark, say hello.
What's up, everybody? We're back.
All right. Social media shout-outs. Mark, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you guys know the drill. You can find me on YouTube at _disc golf or on Instagram at mark.boonstra. You can find the podcast on YouTube as well at Understable Podcast. Just look us up. And you can find us on Discord and Facebook and Instagram as well.
Hit us up on all of the socials. And if you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review, please. And thank you. You can find me on YouTube at 0_BLS. If you are interested in Pokemon content, you can find me on Instagram as well, Brandon L. Schmucker. So, sponsors as well. Do we have any sponsors to thank, sponsoring the show or sponsoring us?
I think we do, actually. Right. As far as I know, I'm still on Catalyst Disc Golf Team again this year, but I haven't officially heard that from Jess. I'll find out. Mm-hmm. But big announcement. I don't know if I said this last episode or not, but big announcement for me is I am back on Team Prodigy for the 2025 season.
If you didn't announce that last episode, then congrats. Congrats is very exciting. So that's cool. You took 1 year off and now you're back on the team.
Yep.
Very, very
Played
nice.
a tournament New Year's Day and finished second in my division.
Did you aced that day too, right?
I got my first ace in 2.5 years.
Okay, in a tournament though. So
yes, sir.
Okay. Making moves. We're making moves. Myself gonna be representing Disc Baron again. This is gonna be my 4th year, I think. Yeah, I think this is gonna be year 4. Discbaron.com. Use the code 71353 at checkout if you want some cash off of your order. Thank you very much to Jacob Stahl, the Disc Baron, for having me on the team once again. It's going to be an exciting year. I'm kicking off the rust from last year. I didn't get to play as much, but I have been out and playing in the snow and already getting back into it and finding the timing, finding everything. It's coming back. So I'm excited to be playing a lot more disc golf this year.
I just want to say, if you guys are watching us on YouTube, please give a like and a share and a subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. And go follow both of us individually. Brandon posts disc golf videos almost weekly at this point.
Yes.
I try to post when I get out and play.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let's jump into it.
Right.
How has your getting back into the swing of things been going?
It's been good. I didn't play this weekend, but the weekend is not over. And we're recording this on a Saturday night. But we're getting a decent amount of snow in Michigan, so we'll see. But in the past 4 to 5 weeks, I've played 4 to 5 times. Getting some videos. You guys can see I've been trying to do some more like flavorful things with my videos on Instagram instead of just posts of me throwing, which will still be there, but I'm trying to expand my Instagram a little bit more to be a little more interesting with some like cuts of my rounds and some photos. But it's been good. Like at first it was really rough. I think putting has been really hard. The fundamentals are helping me make putts, but as it gets cold, and I've been rusty, putting has been the hardest part. You were there. You and I played around.
I did. It was good.
I missed how many putts in the circle did I miss? 6?
Oh, goodness, at least 6. Yeah.
Yeah, too many. But still shot under par. Of course, we
including
played.
Like a 10-footer.
Yeah.
A 10-footer.
Yes, and we got it on camera too. It's on camera somewhere.
I think you posted it on your Instagram.
It's somewhere out there. But the timing on the drives and everything is good. The sidearm's feeling really good. Putting needs to improve the most, and so does the upshot. So like short game, those frisbee kind of skills need to come back more than anything. But those are also harder, I feel like, to really get into in the winter.
And then there was a tree.
And there was a tree. Yeah, it hasn't. Yeah, the putting it's been pretty bad. So, but yeah, how about
You're crushing the drives though, that's for sure.
Yeah, what did I go?
Except for the tree.
Yeah, except for the tree. But what did I go, like 30, 40 feet deep on 6 at JC or something like that? I just flipped it up.
Yeah,
flat and straight, and it just kept going.
Something like that.
Yeah,
it was a bomb.
Yeah.
So for me, outside of our 1.5 foot of snow we have on the ground, I haven't been playing as much. League's been kind of on the hold because of all the weather blowing in. Mm-hmm. Outside of the New Year's Day tournament, that's been it.
Right.
So,
but you played really well there, so like that's a good sign.
I played incredibly clean. I went 8 down, +1, and then 7 down.
The inconsistencies, man.
Yeah, round 1 I couldn't miss a putt. Round 2 I couldn't putt. Round 3 I couldn't miss a putt. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You have those rounds, and I still finished second place.
Right. So yeah.
It's fine though. It's building blocks. So my last 2 tournaments are a win and a second place. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
It's time to build. It's time to move on and make this year be my best disc golf year ever.
Yes, absolutely.
So
get her done.
I have a lot of confidence. My bag, I feel, is dialed into where I want it to be at. And it's time to really put the knuckles down and just go.
Yeah. I mean,
get back into the putting routine, get back to confidence with that, and start hitting everything I need to hit. So
yeah,
I'm really excited for what this year's going to bring.
Yeah, it's been pretty nice for you specifically because like even when last year when you were not on Prodigy's team, you were still throwing almost 100% their discs. You might have had. I
didn't change anything.
I was gonna say I don't think you. I don't remember off the top of my head if you changed anything. I just remember you're still throwing Prodigy regardless. So you're still sticking with what you like.
Early on in the year, I took the FX2 out and put a felon back in because there's nothing like a felon.
Right.
A felon is a felon is a felon. We can't replace that particular mold.
Right.
But after about 4 or 5 rounds, I realized it's not what I throw anymore. It's not, doesn't feel as good in my hand, and it's not what I want. So I very quickly went back to the FX2, and I've really dialed that in at both forehand and backhand. And it's got my 260, 270 pure hyzer range.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. You like what you like at this point. You've been playing long enough. Why mess with it?
Exactly. So.
Yeah. All right. You want to start us off with our news?
Big news in disc golf. A lot of changes this offseason. A lot of unexpected things I think have happened.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about it. Yeah. So I think 3 of the biggest moves right now, our biggest names in the offseason are AB re-signing with Discraft.
Mm-hmm. I think we all saw that. We saw that coming, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Ezra Robinson going to Discraft. That was predicted.
Yep. Also, good for him, though. Good for him. It's a good
fit. We'll talk about him in just a minute. And then Isaac Robinson going to Latitude, which I personally did not see that coming.
I didn't either.
I thought for sure he was going to Discmania Gaming.
Right. Yeah, which I also thought would have been a good fit.
But I think this is a great fit for Isaac.
Same.
So, another big news is Ken Climo signed with Discraft as well, which is surprising.
Another shocker. Something, if you would have told me that 6-7 years ago, I would have called you crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But.
So, Ezra. Let's dive into Ezra first over Isaac. Yeah. Ezra living in the shadow of Isaac Robinson for the last 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I actually got a chance to watch him on the tour down under. It's going on with GK Pro or Go Throw now.
Mm-hmm.
Last I saw, he was in, I think, second place right behind Luke Humphreys, and the final round finished today. But he was throwing them Discraft discs quite well. He was getting nukes to kind of flip up and go straight, and he was actually one of few players to throw a Malta.
Oh,
most players. I heard most players haven't bagged a Malta.
Okay,
just not liking the mold, but he's been throwing it and he's throwing it well.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a great move for him. I think it's a good fit. I think he'll do very well there. He'll be not living in Isaac's shadow of being a 2-time world champion, 3-time major champ.
Right.
It's now the Ezra Robinson era. I think he's up and coming. I think he's going to make big moves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Like you had mentioned, doesn't necessarily quite have the accolades of Isaac, but I think this was a great fit. I think the style of discs is going to work for Ezra. And we have talked about this a couple of times on the channel already, but he spent some time before he had even gone pro or played any tournaments. He spent a lot of time working on his form and the fundamentals of the game. He is equipped, because he did that, he is equipped to throw any brand with precision. Like, he is the definition, I feel like, of the archer, not the arrow. But I do also want to say, like, in a complete opposite vein of what I just said, I feel like this was a great fit for him and his style of play. So this made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, he's one that's going to put the work in. Mm-hmm. And I think he's already put the work in for this coming season. There's still more to dial in, and there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be, changes, I'm sure, to the bag throughout the season. But building that core bag is what it's all about. And we've discussed that on the show before too.
Yeah.
When you're building a bag, you build a core bag around what you're comfortable with, and that's where you start.
Right.
So I think that's what he's done, and based on what I saw from him throwing, I think he looks pretty dialed in.
Yeah. Yep. I think he'll have a pretty solid year.
What about Isaac?
So Isaac signs a 3-year deal with Latitude, $150,000 a year guaranteed, and incentives to be made on top of that. He's projected to make $300,000 a year. Instant royalties from discs sold with his name on it. Plus, I believe there's playing incentives. We don't know anything about those incentives. But he goes to Latitude in a move that I didn't expect. I did not expect anything to really happen with the Trilogy brand. Now, there's stuff going on with the Trilogy brand, and we're going to touch on that in a bit. I did not expect really any big signings. I expected maybe some of the, lower players to maybe leave, or maybe they sign some sort of like filler players. I don't know. But I think it's a good fit. Latitude, of the 3 brands, Latitude has the most stable lineup, I would say. And he loves to throw like flat. So I think he's going to find a lot of... he's going to enjoy discs like the Rive, which you could hyzer flip. He could probably hyzer flip.
That's already one of his signature molds, is the Rive.
It's one of the best Trilogy drivers, in my opinion. I could see him enjoying the Enforcer.
I think that his 2 main discs now are the Rive and the Grace, I think it was.
The Grace, okay. Following in Kristen's footsteps.
No, it wasn't the Grace. It was their overstable mid on the same line. I forget what it was called.
I don't remember.
Let me look.
I don't remember.
Continue, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. But I'm surprised. I am a Trilogy guy, so I was very pleased. The fanboy in me was pretty pleased to see him come. He, like we mentioned, outside of the world title, he doesn't have a lot. He did not have a lot of accolades last year. He didn't start really coming on until the end of the year at the World Championship. Right. Before, he was kind of just a blip on the radar. So I'm hoping he can take some of his late season momentum with him in the future. I am a little worried about the lull he had at the beginning, and I hope that's not the standard for him, because then, that would be a bummer for Latitude. However, Latitude gave him I think this was a very company-friendly deal. Did you find out what that mold was?
It's the Glory.
The Glory. Okay, that one's new. Yep. Did you have anything to say about that before we kind of move on to like the money side of disc golf?
Not as far as the disc goes, but last year was a slow start. I don't know if that's a pattern from Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
I forget even 2 years ago he started out slow.
Right.
Because that's why I traded him to Kev in fantasy. And then he took off after I traded him.
Yeah, they do that, don't they?
So I hope this isn't the pattern with him. I hope he's able to be focused and locked in and come out playing well right off the bat. But I don't know. It's a lot to learn in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, the difference.
My problem is, here's my biggest problem. His bag was dialed in, right? He had everything in his bag, absolute money. There are so many options in the trilogy lineup that he can throw that he has to figure out what for sure is going to be in the bag.
Right.
And that's so hard. That's a hard thing to do, especially with all the different options you have. I mean, Latitude, Dynamic, and Westside all have the exact same discs in their lineup with a little bit of difference.
Well, he does have Kristen, who can kind of give him some pointers at this point in silver.
But will she?
Will she? Probably.
Probably not.
I don't know. She's pretty awesome. But either way. Yeah. I do think there's a big difference between Prodigy Plastic and Trilogy Plastic. So I think there will be a little bit of an adjustment. Eventually, I think the amount of options will work in his favor. Will we see that early on? I have no idea. Maybe not. Probably not. But I do think, and we've talked about this, Isaac has a really high ceiling. And I do think that he will be able to further explore that ceiling with Trilogy. But will he do it? I don't know. But I do think the possibility is there with Latitude.
That's fair. That's actually one of the biggest reasons why I switched to Prodigy, because there was a lot fewer options.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you want a stable fairway, this is what you get. You want to flip your fairway, this is what you get.
Right.
You didn't have to go through 3, 4, 5, 6 different molds to figure out what you wanted.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I was talking with Kev about this the other day. Sure, I've been on, this is my third year on Team Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken me 4 years to dial everything in. But if I had taken my bag, if I had gone to every single Trilogy bag in my disc, or disc in my bag, and found the absolute closest mold right from the beginning, I think I'd be a lot farther along now.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel, because I want to experience. I want to try different things. I want to see what they have to offer and see what I can throw.
Yeah. And that is part of the fun of, like, when you get into a new company, or like I think a lot of us when we start off, we do attach ourselves to a brand. And I think that personally, that's fine. I think a lot of people are like, throw whatever, which is, yeah, throw whatever. But like, attaching yourself to a brand forces some sort of discipline on you as a player to, like, okay, let's stick to this lineup and let's start learning at this point. You know what I mean? Not
right.
Instead of like, oh, I need a stable fairway. Well, if you open yourself up to every disc on the market, you've got a problem there. Now, if you limit yourself to 2 or 3 companies, or especially even one, now you get that disc, and now you start learning how to throw that disc instead of like, well, maybe this other disc is for me. Like, no, this is your stable fairway. Throw it, learn it. So
exactly.
Sorry, just kind of a rant, but
no, you're good. And that goes back to one of the things that I said earlier on. Like, you don't need a disc for every shot. You need to learn how to manipulate your discs for that shot.
Exactly.
That's why like Johnny McRae has 2 or 3 Ballista Pros, 3 Saint Pros, 3 of this, 3 of that. Minimizes the selections in his bag to where he knows what he's going to throw. He's going to pick that disc up, and that's what he's throwing.
Yeah.
It's all angle control and speed control.
Yep.
So anyway, side tangent.
Yeah, no. When people tell me that they're like, oh, I'm thinking about throwing an all blah blah bag, well, go for it. It'd be a great learning experience, and you don't have to stick to it.
Yeah.
If you're really not finding the mids you like, then you can find them in other brands. But I mean, it's all trial and error.
I got a buddy down here that's contemplating switching to an all MVP bag.
Do it, man.
And right now he throws Discraft and Innova, and he's, oh my goodness, this year he was outstanding with his gameplay.
Yeah.
Hit 3 league aces this year, and I think he finished second like 4 or 5 weeks at league. Very locked in this year, but
yeah.
He picked up a Gyropalooza box from Hazy Shade and really started to like the feel of it, and started to look into what the overmold process is and how it affects the disc, and he likes it. So I think he's about to switch.
Yeah. Good for him.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I support him 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
So
now, how do we want to attack this second part of this podcast, the second half? Do you want to lead us off, or?
Well, I was going to throw something else that came to mind out there.
Okay, go for it.
What are your thoughts on Mr. Prodigy, Kale LaVisca, going to Discraft? That's another huge name that we didn't think about.
That's
Dr.
true.
Smooth, I think it is, or
That's
Mr.
true.
Smooth, whatever it is.
That's true. I believe that is a just goes along with, so now Will Schustrick is the CEO. I think we briefly touched on that. That to me is just a part of the wave of change that Prodigy is going to go through. Whether that be good or bad remains to be seen. That's a wait and see kind of thing. I don't think that's good for the brand. I personally think that's a little bit of a bad sign, considering he was a big part of starting Prodigy, and he was so... but you could say this about other players too, like Macbeth and Climo. But he was just so pro Prodigy, and they supported him, and he supported them in such a good way. He really helped the brand, and I'm shocked. Honestly, I kind of thought he might not. Now we don't know. This might not be like a I don't think this is a big money thing. I think this is just like a, hey, be part of our team kind of thing, and he's probably get some guaranteed money, but it's probably not a whole lot because he's more focused on, the preserve and some other things in his local area. But I'm kind of shocked that he did that. I'm not shocked that it's Discraft in general, but I don't know. I thought it was, good for him. He's done it before, so he knows he's going to be, he's going to dial himself in very, very quickly. I don't know. I was just kind of shocked. That makes me worry for Prodigy that he did that. What are your thoughts? Because you as a Prodigy guy, I think you would have some maybe different thoughts.
I think we're honestly just seeing a changing of the guard at Prodigy. Bring in new CEO, new outlook on things. That's going to bring changes. And one of their big changes they announced this week was they partner with Altif Innovations, which is part of the Professional Frisbee Association. So they're kind of they're dipping into Ultimate Frisbee now too.
Yeah.
And I heard that what Will's trying to do is Will's focus is not a player. Will's focus is bringing the quality back to the discs that Prodigies should have.
Yeah.
So he's going back to ground zero. He wants to bring a quality product to the market and try and break that black eye of the flashing and the bad quality plastic. So
yeah. And that's the end of the business model right there. Is we have our players, and yes, they've helped us build the brand, but we don't need those players necessarily. I mean, yes, you need players, but like, we don't need those $1 million a year guys to sell our discs, because we make quality discs that have historical relevance and they're good. That's the bottom line. You can't say a rock is a bad disc, But yeah, I do think Prodigy's going through some changes. And I think that's a very smart move to get involved in Ultimate. That's just another source of revenue. Now, that is something that Discraft did. That is a part of how they made their money, that they can pay their players on the disc golf side of things. So Will has seen it work before. So it's a very smart move. Just get that money wherever you can and pump it into your plastic. They will at some point need to, I think, take a risk and pony up for a big player. But the money doesn't have to be crazy, because I think Isaac's deal has kind of reset the market a little bit, in my opinion.
And that's the thing, like, you look at all these big contracts, the Macbeth contract, the Ricky contract, you can even say Kristen's contract, and these big contracts have skyrocketed disc prices.
Yeah, they have.
4 or 5 years ago, before 2020, what was the cost of a Luna? $12, $13.
Yeah,
they're going for $13 on base plastic, all the way up to $24 on Infinite.
Which is crazy.
If you look at the cost of the average Prodigy disc, their premium molds are, I think, $17.99 or $19.99 for $750.
Yeah,
but for the most part, they haven't changed the cost of their plastic. It's maintained the same pricing.
If you like a Latitude, that line, the Royal line, like the Rive and the Glory and the Trust, those are like $24 a piece. And now that is their premium. That is the cream of the crop for them. It's even more. It's even better than their like quote unquote star blend of discs, but it's $24-$25 a disc.
But yeah, I mean, this news from Prodigy is big. I think hopefully it's a good move for them. I trust that Will's making the best decision for Prodigy as a whole, and we'll see what happens.
I
don't think they're going to fold anytime soon, but
no. I don't think they're not in trouble of going out of business. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but like I could see them pulling a sort of like what Discraft did before Paul came is we thought that Discraft was dead in the water. We were not seeing certain molds released in certain plastics. All of a sudden they seemed to be dwindling on the shelves, but that was all a strategic thing. They were biding their time and saving their money, and then they lured Macbeth with the guaranteed money and changed the way the game is done, changed the way that players are signed. And then they exploded. And I think Will saw that.
I think the era of big contracts is done, at least for probably the next 10 years.
It is.
For those that think they're going to go to professional disc golf and make $1 million a year, it's not happening. Yeah. I hate to tell you, but it's not going to happen. If you're fortunate, you'll get $150,000 a year, which is pretty good. Shoot, pay me $150 a year to go play disc golf. That's all I'll do. I'll love it. Right. You can pay me $70K a year to go play disc golf, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, and
I'll live in my little hatchback Mazda. I don't care.
Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Isaac reset the market, and I think Latitude, because we have, and I've been talking to Kev in the background too. We have been seeing lately. We have not been seeing details of people's contracts. I feel like over the last few years, you're seeing a lot less of that. I think things have been happening behind the scenes. Obviously, disc golf is shrinking a little bit. I talked to Kev about this a little bit, and I said that I feel like we obviously all agree the boom is done, right? The massive growth is done. I think disc golf in general is actually getting smaller. Where the players who started during COVID, some of them stayed and some of them left. Now, I think we might still continue to see a little bit of a shrink, and then we're going to settle. I don't think it'll be as small as when I first started, where you might sign up for a tournament and there's 35 people total and there's 72 spots. However, that does affect the money side of it too. And I think Latitude released the details of that contract on purpose because we haven't been seeing that lately as kind of not like a warning, but kind of telling the world that like this is the new standard. Okay, we've got a guy who's a 2-time world champion, and we're only quote unquote signing him for $150,000 a year bare minimum, whereas someone like Kona was making $500,000 a year with not a lot of accolades. Had she even won anything on the Disc Golf Pro Tour at that point?
I don't think so.
Maybe one win total. But I mean, she had a nice social media presence. But like, that is not, you know what I mean? That is not how the game it works at this point anymore. Like I said, I think they did that to kind of reset the market. You've got these top tier players. The money is not there the way it used to be. And I think that's just the new standard. I think you're going to see more contracts like this if those details are released. I think Latitude sent out a little bit of a warning shot to everybody out there that like this is the reality of contracts now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's absolutely a reset because Isaac, 2-time world champion, that has weight. 3-time major champion, that has weight. So I think if you take him where he's at right now, and even Gannon Burr, if Gannon Burr was up for contract this year after coming off 9 wins, I don't think you'd see a big contract like that.
No,
you're going to see a small 6-figure contract. Is going to be the high contracts. A lot of these players are going to take a huge pay cut when they resign if they haven't already. I mean, another big one, Ricky. The threat of Ricky leaving Dynamic. I mean, that's been all over the news lately.
It has, and I think that is a reality at this point. I think
he's not going to get $1 million a year anywhere he goes.
No, he won't.
At this point.
Nope.
Nobody's going to pay that.
Nobody's going to pay that, and it's not because they don't respect him in his accolades. He's one of the greatest players of all time. It's just because the money doesn't make sense to pay that much anymore, and that's because disc golf is just shrinking in general. And
yeah, you saw it last year on live coverage if you watched any.
Yeah.
The spectator numbers were down quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's just, this is kind of a personal take, but the cost of DGN is too expensive. The cost of Udis is too expensive.
Yes.
Who knows if Jomez is going to be behind a paywall this year?
Right.
It's just they've bumped everything up in corporate greed, and it's going to destroy disc golf as we know it.
Yeah.
Disc golf will go back to being a local hippie sport that we once knew.
Which, for me personally, I'm kind of fine with, but I know some people are not, because people want to make money off the sport. And that's whatever. I'm never going to make money off the sport. I'll never be that good. But Ricky, I definitely think so. With the shrinking of the sport, right? And we had talked about this a lot. We're always like, well, how long can they hold on? How long can they keep paying players like this? We've all had these thoughts, and we've said them here on this channel.
Yeah.
When disc golf shrinks, how are they going to be able to pay? We are seeing now some of these players are going to start taking pay cuts. Ricky will be the biggest one, I think. Ricky will be the biggest tragedy to, I feel like, happen as far as the disc golf shrinking. I think he's going to get hurt the most individually. We are going to see the companies that went too far into the deep end. We're going to see those companies, we're going to see them suffer. We're going to see their players take pay cuts or leave and go other places. And in my opinion, I feel like Dynamic specifically, and I say this, I'm a big Trilogy guy. I think Dynamic is the number one, and I hate to say this, I feel like they're the number one example of maybe someone who went too far and did too much spending and didn't plan for the shrink. I think they had this vision that disc golf was just going to eternally grow, and they can spend now and make up for it later. And obviously it hasn't worked out that way. I think Ricky is as good as gone from Dynamic Discs specifically.
Yeah, I just don't think the Dynamic brand was as sustainable, because they followed exactly what Discraft did. Discraft gave Paul $1 million a year, gave Paige $500,000 a year. Mm-hmm. They did the same thing with Ricky and Kona, and then even Kristen.
Well, at that time, your top brands were Discraft, Innova, and then Trilogy as a whole. Yes. Those were the 3 top brands. So the move made sense at the time, but Dynamic specifically, are the ones who I feel like didn't have the kind of money that Discraft had. And Discraft still continues to make, because they have, again, brand molds that have historical relevance. Pardon me, the buzz. And I talked to you off camera a little bit. How many people do you know that you've played disc golf with who have thrown or own a buzz? Mm-hmm. Maybe not you specifically. For me, everyone. I don't think I've played with someone who's never thrown a buzz, and I've owned a few of them myself. They make solid discs at the end of the day. Dynamic hasn't had that. Yeah, they got some really good molds, and like the Felon for them is probably their biggest one, but that doesn't hold the kind of relevance of a Buzz or a Destroyer or a Rock or a Comet or a Wasp, or things like that. Exactly. They don't have an AVR. They can't sustain themselves on the discs alone. So they went out and got the players. I mean, they could sustain themselves on the players alone, but what I think hurt them more, and feel free to interrupt me at any point. I'm a Trilogy guy, so I'm just going off.
You're good.
what hurt them more is, okay, they spent the money. I think that would have been all fine and dandy had they not lost identity of the brand itself. Because when we think of Dynamic, or when we used to think of Dynamic, we used to think of it was fun. All the players were fun. It was funny. They had the best videos. You know? Danny Lindahl.
I used to associate it with players.
Yeah.
Like when I thought of Dynamic Disc, I thought of the Paige Pierce. What was her big one? The Getaway, I think it was.
She did the Getaway, the Deputy they made for her.
Yep. I used to think
putter.
of Eric Oakley, the Oakley Felons. I used to think about the EMAC Troops. And I think at this point, those have all gone to the wayside.
Well, like Zach Melton.
There's nothing to draw you, nothing to associate you with those particular discs. Now, sure, you got Kristen on Latitude, and she'll sell Graces, she'll sell Rives. But that's Latitude.
Yeah, that's different.
When we're talking specifically disc or Dynamic Disc, like who's throwing the Felon? Ricky had the Felon, had the Raptor Eye Felons, but how well did those really do in sales?
Well, and I think of it less of them. Okay, I think of it like locally. And now every local area is different. Okay, we are Discraft country where I'm at right now, but like I'm the only guy in my area who throws a Felon. I'm the only guy who throws a lot of Trilogy. Now, you know, that I think is a bigger indication of that shrink. That has more to do with it, with like DD specifically. I mean, in Trilogy, whatever. Like, I feel like you don't see a lot of Trilogy players, and again, that could be a local thing. But and I'll touch on that a little bit more when we talk about House of Disc in general. But what Dynamic did, where they cut costs in other places to keep Ricky, you know, like cutting people who did some of their media. Their YouTube channel is boring now. They don't promote their players. They don't promote the discs the same way. Like, that fun aspect of Dynamic Disc has been gone for years, and they're just there. They're just there in a way that, like, you know, Gateway is just there, right? It feels very akin to that. No disrespect to Gateway, but like,
and Drew Gibson made a point on his podcast about this, and that is that Dynamic has gone more on a corporate side of things.
They have, I feel like,
rather than staying with that family feel that they used to have.
Yes.
And when you go corporate, that's kind of when things start to go downhill, because now it's like one shoe fits all, and it doesn't work that way.
Right. Opposite side of that coin, you talk about Latitude 64 now. They are the brand that has the good players, the good videos. The people in their media room are fun. You got Jonathan, who
I love watching his videos, man. He's so funny.
He makes fun of himself. Like, that's that, and now that is helping Latitude. Like, you want to promote your brand? Well, do it that way. You know, like, that used to be Dynamic, and now it's not, and that's hurt the brand. Along with the shrink of disc golf, and like you mentioned, it went a little corporate, and now all of a sudden we don't have the money for Ricky. Potentially, no. This is all just like, none of this is confirmed, but I mean, I feel like writing's on the wall. I don't think Ricky's staying.
Right. And with that, I'm gonna move on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard, but from what I heard, Innova cut 51 players.
Really?
Yep.
Now, okay, I don't know, you know, who all they cut. Obviously, some of the flagship people are back. Like, you got your Nate Sexton. Jeremy Colling left. We still don't have an announcement for Colling of where he's going to go.
Probably Discraft. Although, wouldn't it be ironic if he went to Prodigy?
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, you know what? I think they asked. I think Prodigy is the one company he actually like commented and said he's not going back to Prodigy, unless that's
too bad.
Could be smoke and mirrors.
That's too bad.
Could be smoke and mirrors. It could be smoke and mirrors. I don't think Prodigy. If Prodigy signs anyone, I'm telling you this right now, it's gonna be Ricky. That's the only. I don't think they sign anyone this year, except if there's anyone, it's Ricky. That would be their big move.
I don't know if they can afford Ricky at this point.
I don't think they can right now either. I think they'll bide their time. I think you're just they're going to focus on their brand for now, and then they'll focus on players in the next year or two. I don't think we'll see anything, but if you do, it'll be a crazy move like that.
Or it'll be somebody up and coming like a Casey White or somebody on the lower end.
Yeah. Now,
but anyway, back to what we were saying.
Now that brings me. Did you want to continue to elaborate on that, or did you want to move on? Because I want to move on to House.
Oh, go ahead. You're good.
Okay, because I want to move on to House of Discs in general, and the idea that they are not doing well, that they've lost a bunch of money, and just disc golf in general tanking. So, the Oracle, as I call him, the Oracle of disc golf, Drew Gibson. He is no longer focusing on competitive disc golf, and he's making disc golf discussion videos. Many of which, so now I can't disregard anything he says because he has great connections. Some of it I disregard as clickbait. But I mean, respect to him. People are watching, and it is working out for him. So I mean, he posts a video, and I see like in a day it's got like 13, 14, 15,000 views. So
right,
what he's doing is working. So
so let's get him on the show.
Yeah, let's
come on, Drew. Come on, Drew.
What I find interesting, I guess you can maybe consider this personal bias. He put a video out there that they lost $25 million or something like that, and that he said that he thinks House of Disc isn't doing well, things of that nature. Go check the video out, and go get his perspective. Well, they did
file bankruptcy, and that they're going to file bankruptcy. They either have or are in the process of it, and that came from their former CEO.
That did?
Yes. So they are not doing well financially.
So I have heard Dynamic is not doing well. House of Discs, obviously it's shrinking everywhere. A company, so here's my thing. A company that doesn't have money, that's about to file bankruptcy, does not sign Isaac Robinson. They sign no one. They let go of everyone. If they don't sign Gannon, they don't sign anyone to Discmania if they're going bankrupt. If they don't have money, if they don't have a plan. That alone screams to me that these things aren't going to happen. Now, Dynamic themselves being in a lot of trouble, I definitely believe that. The brand as a whole, I don't believe that for House of Discs. And here's why. I sit here and I talk to you about how I'm the only guy who throws Trilogy, right? You might know some people who throw Discmania. There's a few people out there who throw Casaplast. The Berg is a great disc. Nobody talks about the impact of these brands in Europe and what these brands mean in Europe and all of the players who are a big part of House of Discs over there, because they're on the other side of the pond. We don't pay attention to them unless their names are Kristen Tatar or maybe Vino or Silver.
Right.
And Innova, I believe, now you sparked my brain with this. Innova has recently invested in that side of disc golf because it is treated so much more, quote unquote, like a sport over there. They have formed like an entire international team just for that side of the pond, which I thought was a pretty smart move on their part. I think letting go of some of the American players and investing in that side of the world, in that side of the sport, I thought was a pretty wise move by them, and I thought it was very telling, personally. Your thoughts?
Oh boy, there's a lot going on. I don't know. I personally think Dynamic's in trouble. We'll go back to that.
Dynamic in general, I think, yes. If anything happens, it would be Dynamic going under, not House of Discs as a whole.
Agreed. I'm sitting here scrolling through this Reddit trying to figure out the bankruptcy thing, but no, I think House of Disc overall as a parent company will be okay.
Yeah.
I think at worst case we'll see them cut Castoplast out of their lineup and maybe cut Discmania out of their lineup,
Mm-hmm.
which might be a good thing. But even with that, I think did they buy Discmania or are they just molding their plastic? Do you remember?
I know they're molding their plastic. That is a fact. Now, I don't think like Trilogy themselves has bought. I think Discmania is still its own thing. Castoplast is still its own thing, and then we've got Trilogy. But I think Trilogy, I think those brands might be kind of splitting off into their own. I think there's a little more. I think we might see a little bit of like segregation there.
Okay.
Especially with the way things are going at Dynamic. But yes, they are all molded same place.
Right.
Same centers.
But I think if you look at disc golf as a whole, if you look at disc golf Europe and disc golf America, it's like a night and day difference.
Right.
Disc golf Europe is way more professional. They're way more serious about the game. They're not showing up in basketball shorts and t-shirts and camel caps playing, throwing frisbees and
hey, I love
punching
playing
the ground and
stuff,
getting all
bro.
mad.
But
my point is, like, they take it as serious as ball golf.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the nature of European sports is they take things way more serious. And if disc golf wants to grow, they need to change and be like that.
But now, who are the top brands over on that side? It's Discmania. It's brands like Latitude. It's Westside. It's things like that. Those are the top brands. Obviously, Innova's in there too. I feel like.
Yeah.
Because of
to some extent.
Yeah, but that's the difference between disc golf over. Well, I mean, there's many differences. Let's be honest. But as far as like brands go, those are the major differences. Is like Discmania, when you get signed by Discmania over there, like that's the pinnacle. Whereas over here, it might be like Innova or Discraft or MVP now. Right. I feel like MVP is a top 3 brand, in my opinion. Speaking of Reddit, I wanted to bring a little Reddit post to the table that I had found that I thought was really interesting. And now this is on the disc golf subreddit, and this is by user Bearded Disc. I don't know anything about them, okay? And this is someone who owns a brick and mortar shop. And they shared their top sales for manufacturers and molds. Okay. And all right, I'm just going to rattle through them. And now, again, this could all be local. I talked to Kevin about this. This could be local. For manufacturers, like for us here in Michigan, it would, for me here in Michigan, it would probably be Discraft at a local shop. So take this with a grain of salt. But this guy says his top manufacturers, MVP, which includes Axiom and Streamline, Innova, and he says MVP and Innova were close. So Innova number 2, 3 Discraft, 4 Latitude 64, 5 Discmania, 6 Westside, 7 Dynamic, and they said they were surprised they were below Westside, which I think speaks to the volumes of how bad Dynamic has been as a brand lately, if you're below Westside.
Yeah.
8 Prodigy, they said the F9 did the heavy lifting there. 9 Castoplast.
Really? I'm surprised about that.
They said the F9 was the heavy lifter for Prodigy for him. And
that's a huge beginner disc too. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. He says there's a huge drop off between 8 and 9. Castoplast, huge drop off between 9 and 10. So Castoplast was 9 behind Prodigy. 10 was Gateway. And then the other brands like Thought Space and all of that were below even those. So MVP, Innova, Discraft, Latitude, Dynamic or Discmania, Westside, Dynamic, Prodigy, Castoplast, Gateway. Top 10 discs that he sold. Number 1 was the Pixel. Number 2 was the Mako 3. Number 3 was the Rolo. Number 4 was the Glitch and Envy, tied. Number 5, the Buzz and the Crave were tied. Number 6 was the Destroyer. 7 was the Diamond. 8 was the Hex. 9 was the River. 10 was the Wraith.
Okay.
So I
The
thought
Pixel, I'm not surprised because I mean that's Eagle McMahon's signature disc at MVP, and he's a huge name in the sport,
I
just like Simon.
personally,
Time-lapse.
I think this sheds a lot of light on the popularity of MVP and how they are able to pull in players, because I think they're a beginner-friendly company because of the cool look, the cool names, the cool idea behind the brand.
Yeah,
But then like people pick up on it as a beginner, and then they continue to play, and they're like, wait, these are actually quality molds too. Like, it's not just a look; these are good discs. So I think that speaks volumes to what MVP has done, and which is why I would consider them maybe a top 3 brand. But now here's something else I found interesting. Somebody left a comment. They said, out of curiosity, if you combine all your House of Discs brand, how do they compare to MVP and Innova? And the original poster said, he's at the shop, he added them up. House of Discs comes in second in total sales as a conglomerate, behind only MVP for him personally in his area. So House of Discs sells the second most amount of discs as a whole, just behind MVP for this guy. Now, locally here, I would, if that was in Michigan, maybe those numbers look more like Discraft 1, Innova 2, MVP 3, or something like that.
right.
But
So here's another big thing with MVP. Like I just looked up their Gyropalooza box from 2024.
yeah,
It's $125. Comes with 11 discs that includes 2 special editions and 1 proto.
that's a great deal.
I've heard of these individual discs, depending on which particular glow colors you get and the specific disc itself. I've heard of some of these discs going for $60 or $70
Really?
because they might only release one blue mold with the green overmold glow.
Right.
They might release 1 or 2 of those, or maybe 5 of them through all of their Gyropalooza boxes. So MVP's doing things right, I think, in that sense.
They are.
They're offering you a product that everybody wants. That's a fan of the plastic, and they're offering it at a really good deal.
Yeah, that's
but
a
they
crazy
have really
deal.
good stuff. Like my buddy Andrew, he bought the Gyropalooza box this year just because he could, because he was at Hazy and they had him and they talked him into buying it.
Yep.
And now he likes their plastic.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And that could turn into a thing where he sticks with them because the molds are good. I've thrown a lot of them. My buddy Josh Klomstra here, local Michigan guy, throws a lot of MVP, and he's given me some of the discs, and I've thrown some of his discs just to try out. It's good stuff. It's not going to stop me from throwing what I like.
I love the Crave. The Crave is probably my favorite disc from MVP.
I love the Envy. I think the Envy's. I have a glow Envy, and it's awesome, dude. The Hex is a cool disc too. Like the little, it's a good brand. So I'm not shocked that they're doing so well.
So so let me ask this: do you think that art helps sell a disc?
I do, 100%. I absolutely do, and I think creative stamping. Like when my buddies show me an MVP disc, they're like, "Hey, check this out." I'm like, "Wow!" Like they have multicolored foils. They all like, the child in me is like, "Ooh, shiny." You know what I mean? The multiple colored overmolds, like the names are cool. It's the idea around them is very cool. So I think it matters. And I think that hurts some brands. And like a brand like Dynamic, their stock round stamps are very boring. To be very honest. Prodigy.
Same with Prodigy.
They're boring.
But that makes me wonder if the sales on like the Reverb, the Falcor, the Distortion, and some of these other discs, if they have gone up because of having an actual stamp as opposed to just
the logo.
A5 or A3. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm more interested in those discs because of the cool stamps and the cool names. Like the Falcor to me is like I've thrown the Falcor and really, really enjoyed it. It's got a cool name. The Distortion. Cool name, cool disc. Like that disc interests me very much. Yeah.
My thing is like, why would I go try to find a harp or a zone when a Distortion is the exact same thing? And I bag it and I love it.
Well, the harp has a stamp. It's got a harp on it. It looks cool.
Distortion has a stamp.
They're cool. You know what I mean? That's the difference. That's the difference.
So
Slammer doesn't have a cool stamp. The harp has a cool stamp. That's why they throw the harp instead of the Slammer. which they don't make that slammer anymore, but like that's why I went out of business.
Kind of bummed.
But I thought those numbers were kind of eye-opening, and that is part of my reasoning as to why I don't think House of Discs in general is in trouble. Now, I want to go out and say, I don't think at the end of the day, even with the shrink, even with the bad things that I think might happen to some brands like Dynamic, I don't think any of them are going out of business. Brands like Prodigy, brands like Gateway, brands like all of the Trilogy brands, they existed in a space in disc golf before it was very popular. And they did it based on disc sales. It was before players were the big part of the equation. Before the boom. These brands have survived for so long. Gateway has survived on one mold. So at the end of the day, I think those companies will suffer. They won't necessarily be the heavy hitters that they were during the boom. I don't think any of them are going anywhere. I don't think Prodigy's going out of business. I don't think Dynamic's going out of business. If anyone does, it'll be Dynamic. I don't think, Gateway's not going out of business. I don't think anyone's going out of business. I think they'll all still be here. I just think they might not have the professional level of representation when it comes to, being on the pro tour. That's it. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, my final thoughts on this are I think we'll start seeing disc prices level out and come back to being more affordable again. Because, you still have Paul $1 million a year, but people are not paying $30 for a Luna or $25 for a Luna.
No.
It's not sustainable in this economy, for one, but two, it's just if I'm personally trying to find a disc, I don't even go to Prodigy's website. I go straight to their Facebook page.
Right.
Hey, I'm looking for stock run F3s, and guess what? I bet you I get the disc for $12 shipped or $15 shipped.
I'm going to Disc Bear for my discs. That's where I'm going.
Well, I don't have Disc Bear down here. But yes, if you guys are in Grand Rapids, go to Disc Bear and use this code. Gets a little money off.
71353.
And do you have any parting thoughts, Brandon?
No, I thought it was a great episode. I thought this was really good discussion.
Alrighty. Well, guys, you know the saying. Until the next time, keep it in the fairway.